Hi, this is Ann Pearson with the Billable Hour Bootcamp, and I'm here today to talk about something not a lot of people talk about. Now, what I should make clear for lawyers and managers listening, before we jump in and talk about paralegal profitability, is that this is not about how to suck the life out of your paralegals. It's about understanding that your paralegals can be looked at as revenue generators, profit centers, not as an expense to the firm. With the difficulties every firm is having trying to fill open positions these days, this is most definitely not the time to say to your paralegals, you need to just bill more hours or we might have to let you go. That's not all of a sudden going to motivate the paralegal to work more. So I call this the overlooked profit centers in law firms. The reason I'm passionate about this is because as a business owner myself, I get it. Your business has to generate a profit or it closes. But also because I think if law firms could fix a few of the mistakes that I'm seeing in all size firms, solos to AmLaw 10 firms, I think if they fixed these things and see for themselves how profitable paralegals are to the business, then maybe they could afford to pay them more money, which would be a win-win for everyone, the law firm owners and the paralegals. The problem is some firms still view paralegals as an overhead. And that may be because that's all that management has ever known. They see the numbers and they think this is as good as it gets. And we're lucky they're bringing in a little money to cover some of their salary. And so when they're thinking about adding another paralegal, the decision on what to pay is based on the expense to the firm. Let's talk numbers. Because I think if most firms knew what they were leaving on the table, they might be more motivated to look at ways to fix this problem. Here's some of the numbers that I've seen over the last 10, 15 years in the Billable Hour Bootcamp. And it applies whether you have one paralegal, 25 paralegals, or hundreds of paralegals. Let's start with a small firm, 10 attorneys and 5 paralegals. None of them were coming anywhere close to 1,000 billable hours per year, but they didn't really have a set requirement or a goal. The equity partners see them as an expense to the bottom line because they were. Fast forward, less than 2 years later, they're all exceeding 1,500 billable hours per year with a 98% realization rate and bringing in $1 million a year in revenue for the firm. With an average bill rate of around $150 per hour, those extra 500 hours or more per year per paralegal was an increase of close to $400,000 per year over year. And they're trying to hire 2 more paralegals now. If you're a solo practitioner listening, you might be saying, well, I only have 1 paralegal, so that person doesn't really affect my bottom line. It does when that one person starts generating $150,000 or more per year. They're no longer an expense to you. After deducting their direct overhead and a portion of the office overhead, you see that your solo practice has added close to $100,000 to its bottom line without you doing the work. Now imagine if then you add 2 or more paralegals doing that, or 5 paralegals. You have to think of scalability and leverage when you think of paralegals, just like you think of that with your associates. Okay, so let's start with the mistakes. 1, not calculating the profitability of your paralegal group. All firms have different methods for calculating the profitability of their lawyers, but few of them do it for their paralegals. Something I should make clear first, though, is that it's not as much about being able to give you an exact science or that the number is an exact dollar amount that they're going to be contributing to your bottom line. It's that you're using a formula consistently to compare month over month, year over year. Here's what I mean. Let's say the firm measures their attorney profitability using a formula like revenue collected minus direct overhead of that attorney, minus a portion of the office overhead, minus 10% back to the originating partner. And they estimate that a partner's portion of the overhead is $150,000 and an associate's portion is $75,000. Then for paralegals, you might say their portion of office overhead is half of what the associate's is. Or maybe you say it's $50,000, whatever it is. That number is sort of an unknown number, really, because the number of timekeepers vary weekly, maybe. But as long as you choose a number that you use to compare year over year, then you'll know if there's been an improvement. For those who have never run those numbers, what I would start with is first how to calculate direct overhead and then office overhead. Now, again, I'm not saying it has to be my way. Every firm looks at these two numbers differently. How I calculate direct overhead is it's the person's payroll cost, not just their salary, what's their total payroll cost, which any accounting software will tell you what that is, and what your share of taxes are included. It's also their benefits, depending on how generous of a benefit package you offer. That could be anywhere from 20 to 30% of their base salary. For this example, let's stick with the $50,000 number. So we've got a paralegal who makes a base salary of $50,000. Let's just use 10% also for the employer's payroll cost, because payroll taxes are around 7.5%. There could be some state taxes, the cost of the payroll system, etc. It's probably not that high, but I like easy math. So the $50,000 paralegal cost, an additional $5,000 in payroll cost, plus $10,000 for the benefits. So we're at about $65K for direct overhead, plus $50K for indirect overhead. That's $115,000 per year that needs to be collected to break even. And I'm going to use air quotes maybe for break even, because technically, if all the paralegal did was bring in $115,000 in collected revenue, that paralegal is lowering your bottom line by covering a portion of the office overhead. Another way to calculate profitability, or the potential for profitability, is the rule of a third. I used to do this when I was hiring a new paralegal. With the rule of a third, 1/3 of what the paralegal has the ability to generate in revenue, that's allocated to direct overhead, 1/3 to office overhead, and 1/3 should be left for profit. What that might look like with the same paralegal, let's say she has a revenue collected of only $100,000 for last year. That means no more than $33,000 should be the total direct overhead, or you're not going to be profitable, at least from that person. Or maybe your office overhead is really low because you've moved to a completely work from home model. So your office overhead is only $10,000 for paralegals. Good. Then that gives you more wiggle room on that direct overhead, and maybe it could be increased to $56,000. So as long as that's not any higher than that, then that $100,000 in collected revenue is covering all the costs associated with that person, and you've got $33,000 being added to your bottom line. Running those calculations are important, but let's talk about some of the other bigger mistakes that I see. 2, not fully utilizing paralegals. This could be that the attorneys are asking paralegals to do administrative work, or they're giving paralegal work to the associates, or that they're using administrative staff on projects that are billable, or worse, all of those things are happening at the firm, which I see every day. But this is a two-way street. If the paralegal is not saying, wait, shouldn't this administrative work be done by someone else? Most of the time, it's that the attorney just wants the work done and doesn't care who does it as long as it gets done, which is fine if you want to continue to lose money. If not, then make it clear what should be given to a paralegal and what should be given to a secretary. Now, some attorneys might say, well, the paralegal assigned to me doesn't know how to do XYZ, and when they do, I get bad work product. Then fix it. Provide training to that paralegal so that their work product is better. If not, then get yourself a paralegal who can do the work. Just throwing up your hands and saying, it's easier to use my secretary, or the paralegal can't do it, that's not the way to run a profitable business. Usually I see that more of a problem in the larger firms that don't take the time to notice a few attorneys here and there doing that. The problem is, even in a larger firm, if you only have a few attorneys doing that, you're talking about several $100,000s, thousands of dollars in a year. that's being left on the table. Okay, so let's move on to number 3, putting paralegals on the wrong files. When I first started in my paralegal management position, I looked at the current profitability of the group, first by the group, first by the entire office, then by the practice area, and then by individuals. There was a particular team in one of the practice areas that had 4 big national clients that would allow us to bill paralegals, but only at $65 an hour. And yet the paralegals on that team were making more than $60,000 a year. This was back in 2004-05. The reason the clients would only pay that much is because the cases were all the same, just the facts would change. So the clients knew it wasn't rocket science. You didn't need a paralegal with 10 or 20 years of experience to do that kind of work. What they needed was a system, processes, and checklists in place so that one senior paralegal oversees the work of 4 junior paralegals who are making maybe $30,000 a year. All right, wrong file. So 4, telling paralegals to just bill more hours. That doesn't work to motivate people. If someone is short on hours, just telling them to bill more hours isn't going to work. You have to train them, tell them how to do it, give them the tools to do it. It used to be just bill more hours or risk losing your job was the way you handled someone who was short on billable hours. That doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work now. It didn't work then. It doesn't work now, but especially now. There are so many employment opportunities now, they'll just leave. You'll have a hard time filling the position. And when you do, that person probably won't be billing enough hours either, because you didn't take the time to get to the root cause of why your paralegals are not billing enough hours. All right, my 5th one, not making it clear to the paralegals when you hire them that part of their job responsibility is to meet that billable hour goal. It amazes me that this still happens. A law firm's only source of revenue is its billable hours, and yet most law firms don't really want to talk about it with the people who are billing those hours, except to say, hit this target. And they say, how? I don't know, just do it. Why not provide training for new employees on billable hours? I was there, I know. I remember the 1-page memo that gave tips on what words to use and not to use in drafting time entries. I remember the advice I got from a partner who said, use action verbs or don't use the passive voice. Wow, that really took the mystery out of billable hours for me. No, I'm kidding. I say, put it in the paralegal job description. Be upfront and look at, in this tight market, it could be a selling point. If you've got a paralegal candidate coming from a big firm that had a 1,700-hour billable hour goal, and your firm has a 1,400 billable hour goal, I would use that to my advantage when you're trying to hire a paralegal in this market. And 6, last but definitely not least, is not looking at the paralegal productivity number and only focusing on the billable hours. This one alone could be a game changer, even if a law firm ignored the other 5 that I just mentioned. If they were to do this one, they could get some real insight into the potential for profitability. When I'm talking about productivity, though, I'm referring to what percentage of their workday is spent on billable hours. It's their billable hours divided by the hours worked. Most firms have an annual billable hour target set for their paralegals. Many of them factor that into their bonus structure. Some of them even have a straight billable hour bonus for them like they do for their associates. In other words, if you hit 1,600 billable hours, you get X. You hit 1,700 billable hours, you get X. I can see why that billable hour number is the only number that you look at for associates, because it really doesn't matter how long it took them to hit that 2,000 hour target because they're being paid a salary. But with paralegals, not every billable hour is equal. What I mean is you could have a paralegal who bills 1,700 hours, but puts in 300 hours of overtime to get there. And another paralegal who bills 1,600 hours with 0 overtime. Assuming they have similar billing rates, their profitability numbers are going to be vastly different. And yet a firm that's just looking at that annual billable hour number is going to miss that. That doesn't even get into the realization discussion. How much of those 1,700 hours were written off or not paid because of inefficiencies? I would recommend that a firm run those numbers on a monthly basis. If it was me, I'd run last year's numbers now to get a baseline. Payroll can give you the total hours worked for last year. Then get their billable hours. It's an easy calculation. Hours worked, not hours paid. Hours worked divided into hours billed. The other thing I like about the productivity number is that it can be somewhat of a predictor for profitability, because I've never seen profitability when a person's productivity number was well below 80%. Unless they just have a ridiculously high hourly bill rate and a low salary. So these are the 6 mistakes that I see that could be resulting in lost profits when it comes to your paralegals. Are there others? Maybe. But these 6 are the most costly. Look, whether it's our Billable Hour Bootcamp or some other coaching program out there, or you come up with a plan internally to fix those things, you will see a significant improvement in your billable hours and profitability. How do I know this? I see it every day. I just had a coaching call with a firm who had their associates and their paralegals enrolled in our Billable Hour Bootcamp. I see it every single day. Firms are looking for ways to increase their profits without having to raise their rates yet again. Maybe some firms are only making 3 out of those 6 mistakes. It's still costing them. So write down these 6 and make a plan on how you can change them. I'll actually switch them from mistakes to action steps that you can take. So 1, calculate your firm's paralegal profitability numbers. 2, utilize your paralegals better. 3, put your paralegals on the right files based on their experience level and their bill rate. 4, don't just tell them to bill more hours. Show them how to do it. 5, make it clear to your new hires that billing hours is part of their job responsibilities. And 6, calculate the productivity numbers so that you can figure out what percentage of their work hours is spent on billable time. And please feel free to reach out to me by email or phone. I'll put those on the screen here, and comment below if you'd like to add anything, or if you want to share your success stories after looking at some of these 6 key areas. I look forward to hearing your success stories. Bye for now.